Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. I've got loads of questions for us to get through today, but before I get into those, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, all that sort of thing. Join the Kendo Show Early Access group. There's a link in the description down below, and most importantly, don't forget to shop at KendoStar. KendoStar. That's my website, of course. It's a brilliant, amazing, fantastic website that sells the best kendo equipment in the known universe. Of course, I would say that, but don't take my word for it. Check out the reviews we've got. We're the only website that's 5-star Trustpilot rated. Okay, Trustpilot is a independent reviews aggregate. You have to have bought something on there to put a review on there. There's no fake reviews or anything like that. You just can't bypass that because it's not even hosted by KendoStar. It's all done independently. Okay, and we're the only one with that. So yeah, we're awesome, and it pays for this show. So go and shop at KendoStar. Get over there, and then come watch this after. Okay, right now you're back. Let's get into these questions. First one: are you going to be drug tested in a competition? Me? Am I going to be drug tested? I don't think so because I don't compete at that level anymore. But when I did, there were drug tests. I think that's the sort of the purpose of your question is are there drug tests at competition? Yes, there are. Certainly at the high level competitions, things like the World Kendo Championships. I think they've introduced it at the European Championships now as well. I don't know what's going on with the World Combat Games these days, but when that was going on with Kendo in it, there was drug testing in that as well. So yeah, it is a thing. It does exist. Don't do drugs, kids. Okay, right. Next one. Hey Andy, I want to contribute to Kendo in my country. So I want to ask: is there a minimum prerequisite in writing a Kendo book or starting a YouTube channel? Do I have to have a certain rank before doing so? I'm now first queue if that helps you in answering. Right, so no, obviously there's no limit to it, or like minimum you have to be. But obviously if you don't have a certain kind of, some kind of validation, shall we say, in your ability, then I don't think that the stuff you're going to put out is really going to take off. You need to have some point of authority, I think, really, in order to put this sort of material out there. I think I was 5th Dan before I started these YouTube videos, in back in the day on my previous channel in a different life. But when I first started doing these sort of YouTube instructional videos, stuff like that, I'm pretty sure I did it after I got my 5th Dan. So yeah, I'd say that first queue, it might be a bit difficult because you're still on the journey yourself. So instead, recommend people watch the Kendo Show. Right, next. These questions now, these are from the Early Access group, okay? There's a link in the description down below. It's a Facebook group that we've got. It's a fantastic place to ask your questions because there's Kendoka from all over the world. It's a great community. In that group there. So you don't just get my input through these videos, but we get sort of replies from all sorts of people from all over the world, all different levels of experience. It's a great forum for communication as well. So get in that group. It's called the Early Access group, by the way, because when I do put out instructional videos, they go in there before they go anywhere else. You get early access to the instructional videos I put out as well. So yeah, go and join that group. Right, next one. What's your golden tip for promoting your dojo and getting new members? The one, you need a Facebook page, okay? Not a Facebook group or a Facebook account. You need a Facebook page, okay? You need to have a decent sort of website as well that looks credible. And you need to be in a venue that's easy to get to, has parking, and train a convenient time for people to come. All right, there's no point, of course there's exceptions to this, but if you like train at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, like on a Monday, you're going to have a harder time getting members than you are if you train, let's say, on a Thursday night, maybe at 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. All right. So I'd say that. And secondly, try and get a little bit of money together. It doesn't take much, but one of the best marketing things I've done is Facebook ads, running Facebook ads on the Facebook page. Just target the local area, people that perhaps like doing martial arts or like Japanese things. And that gets the word out really fast. Okay. You don't have to spend loads on it. Next. Okay, so it says from earlier, the Tenouchi applied when striking with a Shinai is different to Tenouchi used with a real sword or with a bokuto during the Kendo kata. The action in the wrist is different. with less of a snap when using a sword or bokuto, and the grip is different too. How's that for a topic for the next Kendo rant? Okay, so that is a quote of something that I wrote in the group. Okay, in the early access group earlier this week, somebody asked about curved Shinai, and I think it was about why they're not that popular, or if there's an advantage to using them or something. There isn't. We don't, and essentially, I wrote that in the, yes, okay, so let's rephrase the question. I said that the Tenouchi and the way we strike using a Shinai is different to how we would strike using a bokuto or a real sword, okay? That seems to be a somewhat controversial point. Not entirely sure it has to be, but I can understand why, because there is still a conflation that Kendo equals sword fighting with real swords, and it's not, it's different. The Shinai is not intended to be a direct replacement for the katana or the Japanese sword. That is a quote from the All Japan Kendo Federation, by the way. They literally put that sentence out there. It is not supposed to be a direct replacement for it, but it should be treated with the same respect, okay? So how can I explain this better in terms of what is different between the way you do it? Let me just grab a bokuto. Oof. Okay, so here I am with my bokuto, and I've got a Shinai as well. So let me pop the Shinai down. Right. Okay, so with a bokuto, okay, I'm gonna have to move away from the mic, so my voice might get a bit quiet. I haven't got a great deal of room, and I'm not sure how much you'll get on here, but we actually hold it slightly different for a start. The handle's shorter, of course, all right? But when we're cutting at the point of the strike, it's like a pull. This way as we're cutting, okay? When you're doing the Kendo kata, maybe kata number 1, step back this way, toe, okay? This way, toe. Toe, yeah? Toe, this way, yeah? This way, we pull with the left hand this way, cut as if we're cutting through with the solid, rigid sword. Shh, this way, okay? This way, okay? Bam, this way, okay? That varies from with a Shinai, okay? Let me grab the Shinai, pop that down there, see if I can do it without everything falling over. Okay, so with the Shinai, slightly different, okay? Shinai is flexible. It's flexible, okay? It's supposed to be flexible. That's why it's called a Shinai, okay? It comes from the word shinao, which means to flex, okay? When you strike, you have to snap with your wrists this way. Pam, 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 like that. That's not what you do with a bokuto or with a real sword, yeah? There's this men here. Men. Slow motion, men. This bit here, okay? You don't do that in the Kendo kata, okay? You don't do that in the Kendo kata. With the Kendo kata, you just stop this way, okay? But if you do that with the Shinai, you'll have a dull Tenouchi, you won't have sae, you won't have crisp strikes, and you'll struggle to make yuko datotsu, okay? Shinai is not a direct replacement for a katana, okay? You use it differently. Okay, next one. I'd love to hear you talk about the balance between tension and looseness. I feel like I'm always swinging too far to one side or the other. Maybe you could comment on how you've learned to stay in the zone of relaxed but ready. It's a tough one, okay? It's a tough one, no doubt about it. You need tension in the little last 3 fingers on your left hand here as you grip the Shinai, and in your left calf, okay, pushing downwards, diagonally downwards this way, okay, tense, and then everything else nice and relaxed, heart, mind, switched on, focus, all right, so there's tension there, but everything else nice and relaxed, but the lower body, especially the left leg, tense, left hand, especially last 3 fingers, tense, gripping the Shinai properly there, what's controlling it, allowing you to apply pressure and semi. It's almost impossible for me to say, okay, you have to have so much percentage tension in your left shoulder and in your right shoulder this much and in your elbows this much. It doesn't work like that. You'll figure, it's different for everybody as well, yeah? So you'll figure it out with practice, okay? But one thing I will say is if you do loads of kirikaishi, loads of ichikomi, and loads of kakarigeiko, you'll come to understand it. You'll come to understand what works best for you, because you won't be able to do loads of those things. You won't be able to do that without it clicking somewhere along the way. Okay. So not a bit of a vague answer, I'm afraid, but that's the best I can do. Next, sorry if this has already been asked. What's the best way of overcoming someone with super stiff arms, especially if they're bigger and bulkier than you? What's the best waza to use? So if somebody's got a very strong shinai and they're not moving out of the center, then the waza to use, I would say things like osae. Osae is where you push from above this way, okay? And you're going to get a reaction back, okay? You're going to get a reaction back. So if you step in very confidently, boldly, you give a big, strong push. Now, if you don't push too much this way, or the whole thing will fall apart. But if you give a strong push down the center towards the tsuba with the shinai from the top, forcing their shinai off the center, they're going to push back, okay? If they're that sort of very tense, strong type of player, okay? So they start to push back. And also, because you've moved that shinai down, you've created space in front of their face, and you've taken the center, the first thing they're going to think you're coming for is men. But if you make kote strike from there, they're going to overcompensate as they come back. You'll probably find that something like osae kote will be a really useful waza for you, okay? Other than that, try to get them to hit you and use oji waza. That's another good one as well. Next one. Can you tell me anything about kokutan wood? Bokuto. I received one as a gift, but I couldn't find much information about this type of wood. Other than this type of bokuto tends to be more expensive than other types. So yeah, kokutan is ebony. That's what it is. That's why it's expensive. Ebony is a super expensive wood. It's very beautiful. It's very heavy. I'm not sure. I think they're better for decoration rather than actual use. I mean, you can use them, but I wouldn't go battering them in keiko, because like you said, it's very expensive, not super practical, very, very heavy, like I say, but very beautiful, great as a display piece or as a gift for somebody. Okay, so yeah, it's ebony. That's what kokutan is. Next one. What's the deal with the new kata? I'm sorry for a silly question, but I just don't get it. Are they replacing the old kata or running alongside? Are they required for grading? So, they're not new kata. They're actually technically not kata. They're kihon, okay? They're called the bokuto ni yoru kihon waza keiko ho, or the ways of practicing the fundamentals of kendo using a bokuto, I think is the English translation, something like that. That's what it means anyway. And it's a bit different to kata, even though it uses the same sort of reiho as Nihon Kendo kata, okay? Now, they exist for a couple of reasons. The official reason that they exist is because they provide a good, easy to understand way for beginners to learn the basic waza and techniques and kihon of kendo using a bokuto, so they can understand how things like hasuji, and it's easier to grip properly, the bokuto, work, and also the correct reiho. Also, it doesn't need much equipment, which is really the kind of feeding reason behind it. They came about, shall we say, coincidentally, around the time that selection of Budo became compulsory at junior high school level education in Japan. So junior high school students had to select one type of Budo that their school offered. Most schools would offer Kendo, and some might offer another one as well, maybe Judo. Some would offer, depends on the school, some might offer Naginata or Kyudo, depends on the school. But most would offer Kendo and Judo. However, the problem is some schools up to that point, they didn't offer either. Okay, they didn't even have the Budo curriculum in their school. So they needed something that was easy to teach, not just the kids, but to teach the PE teachers that didn't have Kendo experience. They needed something that the PE teachers could learn to then teach the kids. All right. And the Kihon are very straightforward. They're very relevant to Kendo for the most part. They're not particularly complicated. And they're suitable for that purpose. Okay, so that was the reason for their inception. Of course, though, they do have the benefits, like I say, of instructing beginners in those sort of, for the same reason, actually, in those basic movements. Okay. In terms of grading in Japan, I think for Ikkyu, they have to do the first 3 or 5 or something like that these days. I don't know. I never did Ikkyu in Japan. And I've never been to an Ikkyu grading in Japan, actually. My kids are too young for it. So I think they did change it, though, so that for Ikkyu, they had to do it. In some countries, I think they've started to change it to follow suit as well. In the UK, we don't. We still use the Nihon Kendo kata at the Ikkyu level and throughout Shodan. So, yeah. At the minute, they're not used in gradings in the UK. Like I say, that they are in some other countries, I believe. Okay. Right. Next one. Hey, I have a question. In Jigeko, I have a tendency to block all the time, mostly due to reflexes. I also block hits to my door, and I got hit on the arms in the process. Are there any suggestions how to get rid of this bad habit of mine? Right. Whew. Ready for the next controversial statement? Blocking in and itself is not necessarily a bad habit. All right. It's not the best way to deal with an opponent's attack, but it doesn't mean like you're bad at Kendo if you block someone's attack. All right. If you've got no other choice, then blocking it's not that bad. Don't do it in a grading. All right. And the reason for that is because it isn't the ideal thing you should be doing in Jigeko. Because 1, you can't attack when you're blocking. And 2, you should be trying to test your waza against your partner. Okay. But look, it's human reaction. It's natural, isn't it? That if somebody makes an attack at you with a sword or a Shinai, that it's natural to try to defend yourself. So developing Orju waza is a good way to turn those defensive movements into attacks of their own. But what you really need to be doing is focusing more on making your own strikes, okay? But don't beat yourself up too much about it, okay? If you block a strike or 2, it's okay, yeah? It's best not to do it in the grading. I don't think... for the most part, certainly at lower levels, like just doing a block or 2, even in a grading, is going to fail you, like I say, because it's part of human nature. But it's better not to have that sort of mindset. If you can, try to be more proactive, try to be a bit more aggressive in the attacks you're making. But more importantly, just don't beat yourself up too much about it, okay? You'll overcome it, I'm sure, in time. Okay, next one. What do you consider your proudest moment as a coach? I mean, things like one of your students winning a taikai or passing a particularly arduous shinsa or something like that. Well, I'm still reasonably new to sort of the whole sort of coaching idea. I've only been doing it probably for the last 4 or 5 years. So I haven't had the opportunity to have many great successes at it. I will say, though, that I have had some very proud moments, of course, when I was coaching kids in Japan. Seeing them, it's not so much, I'll be honest with you, right? One of the best things about coaching for me isn't so much going to like a taikai or a shiai and then like winning. Yeah, that's great. Of course it is. It feels great when you do that as a coach and as a player. But what I really, really enjoy is seeing the students come in and make that improvement from week to week. Okay. That I think is the most rewarding thing. When you see them overcome whatever difficulties they've got themselves, whatever challenges they're facing, and that can be little kids, it can be adults, it can be elderly people. It doesn't matter, actually. It applies across the board, but all their different challenges are different. But seeing them kind of persevere and like I say, overcome those challenges, I think is the most rewarding thing, rather than like one specific event, if you know what I mean, because they're just manifestations of that weekly grind, as it were, and sort of seeing that they those achievements sort of just validate it in a way. But like if you let's say somebody like a kid starts up kendo and they really struggle with it, or they're really shy or something like that, and they really persevere and they really do make massive improvements. Now they don't become the strongest kid in the dojo or in the school or in the prefecture or anything like that, but they make massive improvements in their own kind of boundary, if you know what I mean. That, and maybe they'll never win a Shinai, or maybe they'll never, make a massive achievement like that. But that kind of, seeing them come from A to B and then on to C, that in itself is super rewarding, if that makes sense. So I definitely think that. And then, of course, yeah, when they do go on and they win a Shinai, or they just take an Ippon in a match, sometimes that's as rewarding as seeing another kid that's maybe really, really strong, was right from the start, naturally talented, shall we say. I'm not a massive fan of that sort of term, but let's just say they took to Kendo really well, and they win almost every Shinai they go in. Yeah, I'm super proud of that too. But then you've got the other kid maybe, or the other person that might be a little bit more, struggling a little bit more, and then they take that first ever Ippon, and win their first ever match, and that's, that in itself is almost as big an achievement, if that makes sense. So, yeah. Anyway, next one. Kendo with sweaty hands. How do you keep the Shinai scarf from developing a paste that makes it slippery? Can we also modify the bokuto handle with tennis tape? Right, don't modify your bokuto with tennis tape. That'll look kind of weird. I don't think you need to do that. Probably you're gripping the Shinai too tight. If I'm honest, I think it sounds to me like you're probably gripping it too tight, and that's why your hands are sweating so much. Probably you need to relax your grip on the Shinai. I mean, I hear this a lot, like, oh, I've got sweatier hands than everyone else, or I sweat more than most people. I'm sure, yeah, perhaps, but I think there's like literally millions of people doing Kendo. I don't think you're the only person that's like sweats that sort of much. So it's not just that. There's a way around it, I'm sure. So, like I say, I think what I'd focus on for the time being is maybe looking at how you're gripping the Shinai. Next one. I see a move towards making Kendo a sport and less a martial art, favouring speed over form, for example. Do you agree or disagree? I pretty strongly disagree. As the question's framed as, I see a move towards making Kendo that implies that somebody's actively trying to make Kendo into a sport, when the people in charge of Kendo, which is the Zen Kennen, the All Japan Kendo Federation, and the International Kendo Federation, are actively working towards keeping Kendo away from being just a sport. There are sporting elements of Kendo. It's part of what is involved in the shugyo, okay? The shugyo being the journey that you make throughout your training of self-improvement. The concept of shobu, victory and defeat, is critical. It's of critical importance in Kendo. You need it to fully benefit from what Kendo has to offer. Now, I do not think that there is an active move towards making Kendo more sports-like. They keep changing the rules quite often to deter it from becoming like that. They're trying to encourage language that's used around Kendo to be less sports-related and more towards martial arts related terms. Try to not use terms like court or ribbon, or like they're the ones that comes to the top of my head, but those sort of words, and instead say shiaijo and mejirishi instead of taski. Taski means ribbon. And even the word bogu, the Zen Kennen prefers to use the word kendogu, because that means Kendo equipment, whereas bogu means protective armor. And, it can be used for other sports as well. Maybe like the taekwondo or something like that. They could call that bogu as well. So they change the rules. Things like, high school kids, if they spend too much time in Tsubazeri, they end up getting a hansoku. If the junior high school kids spend too much time like this, just defending themselves. They get hand sucker. So I really don't think that Kendo is being moved towards becoming a sport. And I don't think either, if I'm honest, even looking at Kendo from 30 or 40 years ago, Kendo Shiai, and looking at modern ones, I don't think that it's moved towards a more sports-like activity either. Now, I'm sure lots of people would disagree with me, and that's cool, but that's my impression of it. Okay, here's the last one. Is there any exact Dan level to achieve for running a dojo or to teach Kendo to other people? Thanks. This is the exact same answer to the earlier question about having your own, writing books on Kendo or having a YouTube channel. In most places, there isn't an exact Dan level. In some countries, though, there is. Some countries, you do need to have a specific Dan level before you're allowed to open your own club. In Japan, I don't believe that's the case, actually. But, like, nobody's going to come to your dojo if you're, like, first or second Dan, and you're the teacher, unless there's another good reason that they should, okay? So it's not necessarily just about the Dan grade. Do you have the ability to fairly command the authority to operate a dojo, okay? Should people really listen to what you're saying? And is that really, fair for you to ask them to do so, okay? If you're like first Dan, 2 weeks after passing your first Dan exam, you've been doing Kendo for 18 months, do you think you should really be transmitting what you know to people that know nothing about Kendo, with nobody overseeing that you're actually transmitting it in the right way? Chances are you're not really qualified to do that, all right? So you have to be a little bit more, careful with that. I'll be honest with you, I was 6th Dan before I started my own dojo, right? I didn't start a dojo of my own until recently, okay? I did help teach at other dojos, or I did teach, I was a main teacher even in a way, even at other dojos, by virtue of the fact I was the highest grade. But I didn't open my own club and start teaching beginners in that way until late last year. All right. So, that's where I land on that. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, all that sort of thing. Join the Kendo Show Early Access group. And most importantly, shop at KendoStar. See you all next time. Bye-bye.